I promised my wife. My family wouldn't be at our anniversary dinner, but I surprised her by bringing them anyway and told her to move on. My entitled wife walked out, disrespecting my mom, so I demanded that she apologize. She divorced me, and now I'm regretting my actions. I'm 29, and my wife Sophia is 26. We've been married for 3 years now, and I honestly didn't expect something like this to turn into such a big deal. Everyone I've talked to keeps acting like I did something terrible, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like people are ignoring how Sophia behaves in situations like this. This happened last week on our anniversary. For some context, I come from a close family. We see each other often. We celebrate things together, and that's just normal to me. Sophia knew that when we got married, it's not like I suddenly introduced her to this dynamic out of nowhere. My mom called me about a week before our anniversary asking what we were planning. That's not unusual. She always asks. She cares about things like this, and she likes being involved. I told her that Sophia and I were planning to go out to dinner, just the two of us. Right away, she asked if we could celebrate at her place instead and invite everyone. She sounded excited about it, already talking about food and who she'd call. I didn't immediately shut it down because, honestly, I didn't see the harm. It's an anniversary. It's something families celebrate too, not just couples. When I mentioned it to Sophia, she said no, almost instantly. That's how she usually reacts when it comes to my family. It's very black and white with her. I tried to explain that my mom just wanted to do something nice, but Sophia had already made up her mind. She said she had plans and wanted the day to be just us. I didn't push too hard at that moment because I didn't want to start an argument over something that I felt could be worked out later. That's usually how it goes. If I bring something up about my family, she shuts it down quickly, and then I have to find a way to keep things balanced without turning everything into a fight. And to be clear, this isn't new. Last year on our anniversary, we were on a trip. My parents happened to be nearby at the time, and my mom suggested we all have dinner together one night. It wasn't even on the exact date, just during the trip. Sophia acted like that ruined everything. She kept bringing it up even after we got back home, like it was some kind of disaster. It was just dinner. It wasn't replacing anything. We still had time to ourselves. But Sophia has this way of holding on to things and turning them into bigger issues later. There have been other situations too. Birthdays, holidays, even random weekends sometimes. My mom will invite us over or suggest something, and Sophia immediately looks annoyed. She doesn't say much in front of others, but afterwards, she always has something to say about it. Like Christmas. My mom likes traditions. She cooks, she expects everyone there, and she puts a lot of effort into it. One year, Sophia said she wanted to stay home and do something quiet. My mom took that personally, obviously. I ended up going to my parents' house for a few hours just so it wouldn't turn into something bigger, and Sophia stayed home. That turned into a whole argument later about how I left her alone. But from my point of view, I was trying to avoid conflict on both sides. There's only so much I can do. So going into this anniversary, I already knew how Sophia would react if I pushed too directly. Still, my mom kept asking about it. She called me a few times that week, checking if I'd talked to Sophia again. She wasn't being aggressive about it, she just really wanted to celebrate with us. She kept saying things like, "It's a special day for the family too." And I get that. We're married. It's not just about the two of us anymore. Families are part of it. So I started thinking maybe there was a way to make both things happen. I talked to my mom and suggested we could do something smaller, maybe just dinner at a restaurant instead of hosting at the house. That way Sophia wouldn't feel overwhelmed and my mom would still feel included. My mom liked that idea right away. The problem was Sophia. Every time I tried to bring it up again, she would shut it down. She'd say things like, "I already said no," or "Why are we still talking about this?" It wasn't even a conversation at that point. 2 days before the anniversary, I tried one more time. I asked if we could maybe do a quick dinner with family earlier and then still go out just the two of us later. I thought that was a fair compromise. Sophia didn't see it that way. She said it didn't make sense and that it would ruin the flow of the day. She kept insisting she had plans and didn't want anything changed. At that point, I felt like she wasn't even considering my side anymore. It's always about what she wants, how she feels, and what makes her comfortable. There's no room for my family in that. And I know people will say I should have just dropped it. But it's not that simple when your own mother is involved. Ignoring her completely would have caused a whole different problem. So I made a decision. I figured if I arranged something nice, something that wasn't too big or overwhelming, Sophia would see that it wasn't a big deal. Sometimes she reacts strongly at first, but then calms down once she sees the actual situation. At least that's what I thought. The day of the anniversary, Sophia was working until 3 p.m. I had the day off, so I handled everything. I booked the restaurant, confirmed the reservation, and coordinated with my mom about timing. It wasn't some huge event like she originally wanted. Just my parents, my sister, my cousin, and her kids. That's it. It felt reasonable to me. My mom did call me a few times that day just to check details. Sophia noticed it later, but I didn't think it was necessary to explain everything over the phone while we were driving. When I picked Sophia up from work, she seemed in a good mood. Nothing unusual. If anything, that made me feel more confident that the evening would go fine. She went home, got ready, and asked me to double-check the reservation, which I had already done. Everything was set. We left around 7 p.m. On the way there, my mom called again. I answered because I didn't want her to worry about timing or think something changed at the last minute. Sophia asked why she kept calling, and I just told her it was nothing important. I didn't see the point in turning it into a discussion in the car. Looking back, she was already getting irritated at that point, but again, that's how she usually reacts when my mom is involved in anything. We arrived at the restaurant and I walked in first. I knew everyone was already there. I also knew Sophia would be surprised, but I genuinely believed she would take a moment, process it, and then come inside. It wasn't like I brought them into our house or forced her into something extreme. It was just dinner. A few extra people at a table. That's how I saw it. I walked a few steps in, then realized she wasn't right behind me anymore. When I turned around, she was just standing there near the entrance, not moving. For a second, I thought she was just confused. Then she looked past me, saw my family sitting at the table, and her whole expression changed immediately. And instead of even trying to handle it calmly, she turned around and walked straight out, right there, in front of everyone. I followed her outside, trying to get her to stop for a second and just talk to me. I told her I was sorry if she didn't like the surprise, but we were already there. Everyone had come, and it would be easier to just go in, have dinner, and then still have time to ourselves after. She didn't even consider it. She started going off about how I ruined everything, how I don't listen, how I always do this. It felt completely blown out of proportion for what it actually was. I kept trying to explain that it wasn't meant to replace our plans, just add to them. It's not like the whole night had to be canceled. But she wouldn't listen. And this is where things really started to get out of hand. I was standing there trying to keep things from turning into a bigger scene, but Sophia was already fully set on making it one. She kept going on about how I lied and how I ignored her, which I don't think is fair considering I was trying to include both her and my family in something meaningful. I told her it wasn't that serious, that it was just dinner and we could still have the rest of the night the way she wanted. I even said we could leave early if she were that uncomfortable, but at least go in, say hello, and sit for a bit so it doesn't look like we just walked out on everyone. That's when she started saying, I planned this behind her back. I mean, I wouldn't say it like that. I didn't tell her every detail, sure, but it's not like I was hiding something bad. It was supposed to be a nice surprise. She kept repeating that she said no from the beginning, like that should automatically shut down any attempt to find a middle ground. That's the part that bothers me the most. There's never any flexibility with her. At some point, my mom came outside. And honestly, I wish she hadn't, because Sophia immediately took that as confirmation that everything was some kind of setup against her. My mom wasn't angry at first. She was actually trying to calm things down, telling Sophia to come inside and that everyone was waiting and excited to see us. She even said she had brought something special for us. But Sophia just stood there with that look she gets when she's already decided she's right and nothing else matters. She said something like, "You knew I didn't want this," directed at me, but loud enough for my mom to hear, which again made it awkward for everyone. I tried to step in and just keep things simple. I told her we didn't need to argue outside, that we could go in, eat, and talk about it later at home. That seemed like the most reasonable option to me, no need to drag it out in front of the restaurant, but she refused completely, not even a compromise, not even 5 minutes. My mom then started explaining that she only wanted to celebrate us, that it was out of love, and that she had already told the rest of the family. You could tell she was getting a bit emotional at that point, which is normal for her. She takes things to heart. Instead of softening the situation, Sophia doubled down. She said she wasn't going inside and that we should go ahead without her. That's when I started getting frustrated, because at that point, it wasn't just about her being uncomfortable. It felt like she was deliberately making things worse. People had come, taking time out of their evening, and she didn't even want to show basic courtesy. I told her that leaving like that would make everything awkward and disrespectful, and she just shrugged it off like it didn't matter. Then she said she was going home. Just like that. I asked her how she was planning to get back, and she said she'd take a taxi. Again, no attempt to resolve anything. I honestly didn't know what else to do in that moment. If I left with her, I'd have to go back inside and explain to everyone why we suddenly disappeared. If I stayed, then apparently I'm choosing my family over my wife. It's always like that with her. No matter what I do, it somehow becomes the wrong decision. She walked away before I could even say anything else, and I stood there for a few seconds just trying to process what just happened. My mom was still there, asking what was going on, and I didn't even have a proper answer that wouldn't make everything sound worse. We ended up going back inside. And yes, I stayed. I know some people might judge that, but I genuinely don't see what alternative I had at that point. The situation was already bad enough. Leaving completely would have made it even more uncomfortable for everyone who came. Dinner itself was tense. Everyone could tell something wasn't right. My sister asked where Sophia was. My cousin kept looking at the door like she expected her to walk in at any moment, and my mum was clearly upset even though she tried to act like everything was fine. I had to explain in the simplest way possible that Sophia wasn't feeling well and went home. I didn't want to get into details there. But of course, my mum wasn't satisfied with that. She kept asking what happened, why Sophia reacted like that, and what she said. I told her it was just a misunderstanding and that we'd talk about it later. Still, the whole atmosphere was off after that. People tried to move on and talk about other things, but it kept coming back to Sophia. My mum made a few comments about how she was disappointed and didn't expect that kind of reaction. My sister said something about Sophia always being distant during family things. I didn't say much. I just let it pass because I didn't want to turn it into a bigger discussion at the table. But internally, I was annoyed. Not just because of what happened at the restaurant, but because this kind of situation keeps repeating in different ways. It's like every time my family is involved, Sophia creates tension around it. After dinner, I stayed a bit longer, mostly because my mum didn't want the night to end on that note. She kept saying she put effort into planning this and that it was supposed to be a happy occasion. Eventually, I went home. When I got there, Sophia was already there. She didn't say anything when I walked in, she just stayed quiet, which I honestly find worse than arguing sometimes. I asked her why she left like that instead of at least trying to handle it differently. And instead of answering the question, she went back to the same points. That I ignored her, that I went behind her back, that I always prioritize my family. It just turned into the same conversation again, going in circles. I tried to explain my side again, that I was trying to make everyone happy and that it wasn't meant to upset her, but she didn't want to hear it. At some point, I just stopped engaging because it felt pointless. If someone has already decided you're wrong, nothing you say is going to change that. So I left it alone for the night. The next day, things got even more complicated. My mum texted Sophia, and I know people might say she shouldn't have gotten involved, but from her perspective, she was hurt, she felt disrespected and wanted to address it. She sent a message saying that Sophia's behavior at the restaurant wasn't acceptable, that she embarrassed the family, and that she should have at least shown some respect by staying. Sophia showed me the message like it was proof of something, like somehow that justified everything she did. Then she started saying my mom always crosses the line and that I never do anything about it. But again, I don't see it that way. My mom speaks directly. She doesn't hide how she feels. That doesn't mean she's doing something wrong. If anything, I think Sophia takes things too personally and reacts too strongly. This isn't the first time she's had an issue with something my mom said or did. There was a situation a few months ago where my mom suggested we spend more weekends with the family instead of staying home all the time. Sophia took that as criticism and didn't want to visit for weeks after that. Another time, my mom rearranged a few things in our kitchen while she was visiting. Nothing major, just organizing. Sophia acted like that was some huge overstep. To me, these things don't seem like big problems. They only become problems because of how Sophia reacts. And that's exactly what happened with the anniversary. Instead of just going along with it for a couple of hours and then moving on, she turned it into something much bigger than it needed to be. Now everyone I've told about this has an opinion. Some say I should have told her beforehand. Others say she should have handled it better. But what bothers me is that no one seems to acknowledge how difficult she can be in these situations. It's always about what I should have done differently. No one asks why she couldn't just compromise for once. Why everything has to be her way or nothing. Even now, she barely talks about anything else. And I honestly don't understand why this had to turn into such a huge issue over what was supposed to be a simple dinner. At this point, I'm just trying to figure out if I actually did something that wrong or if this is just another example of her overreacting to something involving my family. because from where I'm standing, I tried to make the day better, not worse. And somehow, I'm the one getting blamed for everything. And that's where things still are now. It's been over a week, and instead of this blowing over like most disagreements, Sophia is still holding on to it like it was some kind of breaking point. She keeps bringing it up in different ways, like she's trying to get me to admit I did something terrible, and I just don't see it that way. We've had multiple conversations since that night, and they all go the same way. She starts by saying, I don't listen to her, that I make decisions without her, and that I chose my family over her. Then she circles back to the restaurant, how she felt walking in and seeing everyone there, how it ruined the entire day. I've heard it enough times at this point that I can basically predict what she's going to say before she says it. And every time, I try to explain my side again. I tell her I wasn't trying to replace our plans. I tell her we still could have had our dinner, our time, everything she wanted. It was just supposed to be an addition, something extra, but she keeps insisting that it doesn't matter what my intention was because I ignored what she said. And I get that part, I do. I understand that she said no. But at the same time, I don't think a relationship works if one person says no and that's the end of it every single time. There has to be some level of compromise. That's what I've been trying to do this whole time. The problem is, her version of compromise usually just means I drop whatever involves my family. That's what it feels like, at least. She even brought up the trip from last year again, the dinner with my parents that she still hasn't let go of. She said it was the same pattern, like I'm repeating something on purpose. To me, those situations are completely different. That was during a trip, this was just a dinner reservation. But in her mind, it all connects into one big issue. And I honestly think that's part of the problem. She doesn't treat things as separate situations. Everything builds on top of everything else, and suddenly, a simple dinner turns into years of the same behavior, which I don't think is accurate. Yes, my mom likes to be involved. Yes, she calls often. Yes, she has opinions. But that's just how she is. She cares. I don't see why that has to automatically be turned into something negative. Sophia keeps saying my mom pushes too much, but she's just trying to stay close to us. She's proud of our marriage, she likes celebrating things, she wants to feel included. I don't think that's unreasonable. And I definitely don't think it justifies the way Sophia reacted that night. Walking out like that, leaving me to deal with everything, making it awkward for everyone, I still don't understand how she thinks that was the better option. She says she removed herself from a situation she didn't agree to, but that sounds like a justification after the fact. In the moment, it just felt like she didn't care about the impact on anyone else, especially me. That's another thing that's been bothering me. She talks a lot about how I made her feel, but she doesn't really acknowledge how her reaction affected me. I was the one stuck outside trying to fix everything. I was the one who had to go back in and explain why my wife wasn't there. I was the one dealing with my mom being upset, my sister asking questions, and everyone trying to figure out what happened. And then I came home to more of the same. No recognition of that at all, just more accusations. Since then, things with my mom have also gotten tense. She's still upset about what happened. She told me she feels disrespected and doesn't understand why Sophia treats her like this when all she does is try to be involved. She asked me if Sophia even wants to be part of the family, and honestly, I didn't have a clear answer for that, because sometimes it really doesn't feel like she does. Sophia found out about that conversation too, and that just made things worse. Now she's saying my mom is turning me against her, which I think is an exaggeration. My mom is just expressing how she feels. I can't control that. And again, instead of trying to smooth things over, Sophia just gets more distant. She's been avoiding going to my parents' place, barely responds when my mom messages her, and makes it obvious she doesn't want to be around them anytime soon. Which puts me in an even more uncomfortable position, because now I'm the one who has to explain that too. Why we're not visiting, why things feel off. It's like everything keeps circling back to the same issue, and I'm stuck in the middle of it. A few days ago, I tried to have a more calm conversation with her. I told her maybe I should have told her about the dinner in advance. I admitted that part could have been handled better. But instead of meeting me halfway, she focused only on that and said, "Exactly, you knew and still did it." So even when I try to acknowledge something, it just turns into more proof against me. At that point, I asked her what she actually expects going forward, and her answer was basically that she doesn't want my family involved in our plans unless we both agree beforehand. Which sounds simple, but in reality, it just means more situations like this, because if she keeps saying no, then what? Am I just supposed to keep my family at a distance indefinitely? Ignore my mom when she wants to celebrate something important. That doesn't feel right to me either. I don't think I'm asking for something unreasonable. I'm not trying to replace my wife with my family. I'm not trying to make every event about them. I just don't think including them sometimes should turn into a major conflict. Right now, it feels like I'm constantly having to choose, even if she doesn't say it directly. And no matter what I pick, I end up being the one blamed. If I say no to my mom, I deal with that. If I try to include my family, I deal with this. There's no situation where things just go smoothly. That's why I'm writing this. Because everyone around me keeps saying I should have respected Sophia's decision and left it at that. That I shouldn't have arranged anything without telling her. But at the same time, I feel like no one is really looking at how she handled it either. Or how often things like this happen whenever my family is involved. I know I could have communicated better. I'm not saying I did everything perfectly. But I also don't think I deserved that kind of reaction over what was supposed to be a nice gesture. You keep calling it a surprise, because that sounds softer than I did exactly what she told me not to do. Your wife said no, clearly, more than once. You didn't misunderstand her. You waited until she couldn't object anymore, and then walked her into an ambush with your mother sitting there like the guest of honor at your marriage. Also, just dinner is hilarious. It's your anniversary, your third anniversary. She wanted one night where your mother wasn't breathing down both your necks and you still couldn't manage it. Your mom didn't want to celebrate your marriage. She wanted to insert herself into it. And you handed her the invitation. Your wife leaving was the most sane part of this whole mess. The part that stands out to me is how you describe everyone's feelings except your wife's as valid. Your mom was hurt, your family was embarrassed, you were stuck, your sister was uncomfortable, your cousin came out, the kids were there. Everyone is allowed to have an emotional reaction except the woman who got tricked on her own anniversary. You say Sophia made it awkward. No, you made it awkward when you created a situation where the only options were the following. 1. She swallows her anger and rewards you for lying. Or 2. She leaves and gets painted as rude. Third, that was a trap. Maybe you don't want to call it that, but that's what it was. And your mother texting her afterwards was nasty. She didn't text to repair anything. She texted to punish Sophia for not playing along. You're acting confused, but you're not confused. You just don't like that your wife refused to perform happiness for your family. I actually think your wife has probably been done with this pattern for a while, and you're mistaking her final reaction for the whole problem. You described the vacation, Christmas, the kitchen, the calls, the weekend pressure, the anniversary dinner last year, and somehow every single time Sophia is the unreasonable one. That's not believable. At some point, one common denominator is you letting your mother treat your marriage like shared property. Your mom rearranging your kitchen is not organizing. That's a territorial move. Your mom demanding anniversary access is not love. That's entitlement dressed up in family language. And you keep hiding behind, I'm in the middle. You're not in the middle. You're married. You picked a side the second you planned the dinner behind Sophia's back. The wildest part is you still think compromise means Sophia giving in after she already said no. That's not compromise. That's wearing someone down until they stop fighting you. She didn't ruin the anniversary. You did. Then your mom sent the cleanup crew text to make sure Sophia knew her place. I didn't expect to be writing again, and honestly, I still think this whole situation got pushed way further than it needed to. But a lot has happened since I made my post, and apparently people think I should reflect, so I'll just explain what's been going on. After that night at the restaurant, things didn't calm down at all. If anything, Sophia doubled down in ways I didn't see coming. One of the first things I noticed was how she started referring to our anniversary. Not once did she call it our anniversary after that. Every time it came up, she'd say, "That dinner with your family," or "your family's celebration." It sounds small, but it got under my skin fast. It felt like she was rewriting the whole thing just to make me look worse. I corrected her a couple of times and told her it was still our anniversary, just with family included, but she would just look at me like I was missing the point and move on. Then there was the social side of it. She didn't post anything about our anniversary, not even a simple picture or message. That might sound stupid, but it stood out because she always did something in previous years. Even when we argued, she'd still post something small. This time, nothing. Meanwhile, my mom had already told people we were celebrating, and a few relatives asked me about it. I had to awkwardly explain things without making Sophia look bad, while she made zero effort to even acknowledge the day publicly. It felt one-sided. A few days later, I went back to that same restaurant with a coworker. It wasn't planned or anything, it just happened to be nearby, and we decided to eat there. One of the staff recognized me. He didn't say anything directly at first, but later he made a comment like, "Hopefully this dinner goes smoother than the last one." It made me realize that the whole situation wasn't just private anymore. People saw it, people remembered it. And yeah, I blame Sophia for that. She's the one who walked out and made it noticeable. Around the same time, my mom decided to return the gift she had bought for us. It was something she had put thought into, not just random. She told me there was no point giving it if it wasn't appreciated properly. She also said something else that stuck with me. She asked if Sophia even wanted to be part of this family at all. I didn't answer her properly, but the question stayed in my head. Things got worse when my sister got involved. She messaged Sophia directly, saying she felt hurt and confused about what happened at the dinner. Apparently, she had been looking forward to it and didn't understand why Sophia reacted that way. Sophia's response wasn't aggressive, but it was blunt. She basically said she never agreed to any of it and didn't see why she should have stayed. My sister showed me the messages, and it just added more tension. Now it wasn't just between me and Sophia or even my mum, it spread. At home, Sophia started acting differently in ways that were hard to ignore. She began double-checking everything I said. If I mentioned going out, she'd ask who was going to be there. If I said we had plans, she'd ask me to confirm details multiple times. It felt like she didn't trust anything I said anymore, which I found unnecessary. I made one decision she didn't like, and suddenly everything needed verification. It got exhausting. Then there was a situation with my mum inviting us over again. Sophia refused to go. No discussion, just a flat no. I went alone because I didn't want to avoid my family completely over this. While I was there, my mom and sister talked about the situation openly. They didn't hold back. They said Sophia was being difficult, that she embarrassed everyone, that this wasn't how someone should act in a family. I didn't agree with everything, but I also didn't shut it down. I felt like they had a right to their feelings. When I came home and told Sophia I went, she didn't react much at first, but later she brought it up as another example of me choosing them. At some point during one of our arguments, I compared her to my sister. I said my sister manages to get along with her in-laws without creating issues like this. That didn't go well. Sophia went quiet in a way I hadn't seen before. Not angry, just distant, like she checked out of the conversation completely. I tried to explain what I meant, but she didn't engage. After that, she started spending less time at home. She'd stay late at work, go out with friends more, and visit her family. When she was home, she kept things minimal. Conversations were short, and anything related to my family was completely avoided. I told her it felt like she was avoiding me, and she said she just didn't want to argue anymore. That didn't solve anything. Then I made a mistake, according to her. I checked her messages. Before anyone jumps on that, I wasn't looking for something bad. I just wanted to understand what she was thinking since she wasn't really talking to me. I found messages between her and a friend where she talked about me and my mum. Nothing extreme, but definitely not flattering. She said I always put my family first and that I don't listen, that she feels like an outsider in her own marriage. I brought it up, thinking we could talk about it. Instead, she got angry that I went through her phone and said that proved her point about me not respecting anything. So that backfired. Around that time, my mom told me something more direct. She said if Sophia keeps acting like this, maybe the marriage isn't going to work long term. She didn't say it aggressively, just matter of fact, but it added pressure. I didn't want to think about that seriously, but it was there. Then came the turning point. Sophia sat me down one evening and said we needed to talk properly. She wasn't emotional. If anything, she was too calm. She said she couldn't keep doing this, that she needed things to change. Specifically, she said I had to respect what she says when it comes to plans, especially involving my family. No more surprises, no more going around her decisions. Then she said something I didn't expect. She said if that couldn't happen, then we should separate. I didn't take that well. To me, that felt extreme. Like she was escalating things way beyond what they were. I argued back, told her she was overreacting again and that relationships require compromise from both sides. I reminded her of all the times I tried to balance things. She kept repeating the same point, that this wasn't about balance, it was about trust. At some point, I just shut the conversation down because it wasn't going anywhere. We didn't really talk properly after that for a couple of days. Then one day, I came home and she was gone, not in a dramatic way. She had taken some of her things, not everything, enough to make it clear she wasn't coming back anytime soon. There was a letter. I won't write it word for word, but it was long. She listed things I honestly didn't think were that serious at the time. Mum is coming over unannounced. comments about how we should spend weekends. That vacation dinner, the kitchen incident, the constant calls, the anniversary, all of it. She said she felt like she was competing with my family the entire time and that I never actually chose her. She also said I disappointed her more times than she could count. And yeah, she called me a mama's boy. That part annoyed me more than anything else in the letter, because it reduces everything to something childish instead of acknowledging that I was trying to keep both sides happy. She said she couldn't do it anymore and needed space. Not long after that, I got served. I didn't expect it to go that far. I tried to talk to her and called her multiple times, but she didn't respond. When she finally did, it was short and only about logistics. I fought it at first. I didn't want things to end like this. My mom told me I should just let it go and move on, that someone who behaves like that isn't right for me anyway, but I didn't want that. At the same time, she started sending me pictures of women from the neighborhood, like casually suggesting I should meet someone new. That made everything feel even more unreal. Now, we're separated. And I'm stuck dealing with the outcome of something that, in my opinion, didn't need to reach this level. I still think Sophia took things too far. I also think my mom didn't help by getting involved the way she did, but somehow, I'm the one who lost everything in the middle of it. I didn't plan for any of this. I didn't want things to end. And yet here I am, trying to figure out how something as simple as an anniversary dinner turned into this. The interesting part in the story is how he redefined reality in real time to avoid ever being the one at fault, and how that slowly erased the marriage without him noticing it. Look closely at how he uses language. He doesn't lie outright most of the time. What he does is rename things. A clear no becomes not flexible. A planned ambush becomes a surprise. Repeated patterns become separate situations. Loss of trust becomes her being difficult. That's not accidental. That's a coping mechanism. If he called things what they actually were, he'd have to act differently. So instead, he adjusts the meaning of events until his behavior feels reasonable again. And here's the part people miss. This kind of thinking doesn't feel manipulative from the inside. It feels like maintaining balance. He genuinely believes he's the one trying to keep both sides happy. That's why he keeps saying it. But what he calls balance is actually outsourcing the cost of his decisions. He keeps his mother happy by agreeing with her privately. He keeps himself comfortable by avoiding confrontation. And the fallout, that lands on his wife every single time. The anniversary dinner wasn't a one-off mistake. It was the cleanest example of a system that was already running. Think about the setup he created that night. People focus on the surprise, but the real issue is the lack of a safe exit. If Sophia walked in and stayed, she would be confirming that her no didn't matter. If she walks out, she becomes the problem in front of everyone. That's a no-win scenario, and he built it without acknowledging it. Not because he wanted to trap her, but because he prioritized avoiding discomfort over being honest. That's a pattern. And it shows up again in smaller ways that are easy to dismiss but actually matter more. The kitchen is being rearranged, the constant calls, the expectation to attend events, the mother messages directly after conflicts. Individually, each one looks minor, but together they create something very specific, a marriage where one person is constantly adapting and the other is constantly justifying why adaptation is necessary. That imbalance doesn't explode immediately. It erodes things slowly. You can actually see the shift in Sophia's behavior if you track it. At first, she argues, she explains, she says no clearly. Then she repeats herself more firmly. Then she stops explaining and just refuses. Then she disengages. Then she starts verifying everything because trust is gone. Then she pulls back emotionally. Then she leaves. People often think leaving is the dramatic part. It's not. Leaving is the quiet conclusion to a long series of ignored signals. What's interesting is that he noticed every stage, but misinterpreted all of them. Her refusal became stubbornness. Her checking became paranoia. Her distance became punishment. Her silence became an overreaction. At no point does he connect those changes to his own behavior in a meaningful way. Not because he's incapable, but because that would require him to challenge a belief he's built his identity around, that he's reasonable. And that belief is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Because if he's reasonable, then someone else has to be unreasonable. There's no room in his framework for, I handled this poorly and caused damage. So instead, responsibility gets redistributed outward, mostly onto his wife, occasionally onto his mother, but never fully onto himself. Even his frustration now follows that pattern. He says he lost everything in the middle, like this just happened to him. But he wasn't in the middle. He was at the center of every decision point. He chose not to tell her. He chose to proceed anyway. He chose to stay at the dinner. He chose not to push back when his family criticized her. He chose to minimize her concerns repeatedly. Those aren't passive events. That's active participation. The final twist, his mother sending him pictures of other women, isn't just a weird detail. It actually exposes the underlying dynamic in a very blunt way. To his mother, the relationship is replaceable. To Sophia, it wasn't. That's the difference. Sophia was asking for prioritization, consistency, and respect for her input. His mother is offering continuity, same system, new person. And he's stuck because, for the first time, those two options are no longer compatible. What makes this situation educational isn't that someone made a bad call. It's how small, repeated dismissals can feel justified in the moment but compound into something irreversible. Most people don't blow up their relationships in one decision. They do it exactly like this, by smoothing over tension instead of resolving it, by choosing convenience over clarity, and by convincing themselves that intentions matter more than outcomes. The uncomfortable truth here is that he didn't lose his marriage over a dinner. He lost it because, over time, he made it clear consistently and in small ways that his wife's no was negotiable, but his mother's expectations were not. And once that message is understood, it doesn't need to be repeated. That's when people stop arguing and start leaving.